How do you think your research can contribute to the Okinawan or the worldwide society?
Oh, good question. So I just showed you some coral samples right now, but actually, some fishermen from Itoman, Okinawa, actually came to OIST to talk to some marine biologists, and they were really concerned about the microplastics accumulating in maguro. So I'm actually looking at microplastics in maguro. If we find that there are certain types of microplastic, or maybe there's a lot of microplastic, or maybe not even that much microplastics, it will affect how the tuna is basically developing.
Right.
So, I mean, everyone in Okinawa and Japan and like worldwide rely on tuna for sushi or sashimi or something. So it's just, I think that's how my research can contribute a lot, to look at like marine organisms, like the microplastics in marine organisms. So actually, a lot of different people have come to me and asked about microplastics. So tuna is definitely one. Coral is another one. But also some people have asked me microplastics in sharks and ants. And then there's other ones that are looking at in the soil, for example. Another interesting one is that when microplastics are in the soil sometimes, when the chemicals like that are in there, they come out, they leach out, they can cause problems with
The
like
plants.
growth of plants.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely, when they get really, really small, actually there's studies that found microplastics in vegetables and fruits already. Because like when it's so small, the roots can pick up the microplastics. Yeah, and then inside the entire fruit. But a lot of it is like, we know that it's there, but we need to know, speed up to figure out how much there is. So I think bringing awareness to Okinawa is like, oh, if you can reduce like single-use plastics, so like things you use once and you throw it away, like, that would also help. And then also, I think it's important to have more scientists working on this problem.
Right.
Yeah, so people learn how to make new materials that can replace some things, or maybe different new plastics that are more biodegradable and that don't break into like deadly microplastics, or like the more toxic ones at least. That'd be helpful too.
How do you think your research can contribute to Okinawan or worldwide society?
My hope is, so like really at the heart of my work is this idea that we need to empower ourselves to practice the design of ourselves. So like me as an individual, I need to build up the skills and tools and awareness and understanding that allows me to, in some sense, act towards the things I care about. So like I can learn to care for the things I care about. And I think that's true at different scales, right? So if you're in a relationship with somebody else, you as a partnership want to be able to do something similar, right? You as a couple want to be able to say, we want to act towards the things we care about, such that we can care for what we care about. And I think that's the same is true in a community or a society or whatever. So what we're trying to do is develop a set of tools that enable that and enable the kind of conversation between scales, right? So there's no tension between me, or at least we need a language to help resolve the tension between me acting towards the things I care about and the wider society acting towards the things it cares about. Now that's a huge challenge, but I think the first point is to get the language right, you know, so we can have that conversation in a bit more fluid way.
Do you like Okinawa?
Yeah, I think Okinawa is amazing.
How long have you been here?
2.5 years. It's a very, very special place. I love being so close to the nature. The people are incredible. There's so much to explore and see and do. Everything is kind of exciting and new for me. But it comes with its challenges being so far from my own home. OIST is very transient, so there's a lot of people coming and going. So friendships tend to last quite short. Ultimately I think I'll probably try and get back to Ireland at some point, but I think, Okinawa has a huge place in my heart. On my chest too, I have tattoos from Okinawa. So.
Right.
But no, it's been really enriching experience having lived here. My language learning hasn't been as successful as I'd like it to be. But
Any message for somebody, especially for somebody thinking about, going into OIST?
I think OIST has a lot of ideas with like many different people. Sometimes I think there's so many different ideas that like I myself get lost. Yeah, because like, oh, I think that's interesting. Oh, I think that's also interesting.
Right.
But sometimes if you know what you're most interested in, that will help you focus to study what you're interested in. And then once you know what you're able to study, or like want to study at least, then you can start connecting with all the other different topics and like grow the entire your knowledge together. Figure out what you are most passionate about. Even if you don't want to study here, it's still very interesting to see. Just to visit, just to see what it's like.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. You can see the beautiful ocean from the top of the buildings. What advice would you have for Okinawan student who wants to be a scientist?
I think if you're really interested in science, you can go to like events to learn about scientists and meet real scientists. I think it was always really fun for me to talk to like real scientists and see like, oh, this is a real person. It's really fun, and just to kind of get their perspective on things. To be honest, science is not super glamorous or anything all the time. So like in the movies, for example, like Tony Stark building something like amazing or something, you have to like be a little bit more realistic. And it's like you do have like a lot of fun things like that happen, but it takes a lot of patience and work. And so I think if students who really want to be a scientist, you just have to be curious first. Even if you're not curious about everything, that's totally fine. Like for me, I definitely am not curious about everything, but I really care about microplastics. So then that's the one thing. So it brings back to like, figure out what you like. Well, some people don't even like science. That's also okay. But it's also like, if you're interested in other topics, there's probably some scientific aspect to it, and you have to figure it out. You can study about grass, for example. There are a lot of grass scientists, actually, like agriculture and agricultural science. Just think about what you like the most.
What advice would you give for somebody who wants to enter OIST?
I think, to study in general, I mean, maybe to kind of stay as playful with stuff early on in your interactions. Like don't necessarily settle on one, say, position or idea or whatever, but build up the skills that will allow you to then adjust to whatever ideas that you do actually eventually want to work on. This kind of goes back to the design thing we were saying earlier. Like what is the best thing you can do in any moment, right? It's like act in a way such that you set yourself up for a future that you don't know about. Like, I need to act in the local present. I need to act in the here and now, so that when there and then comes, I'm well prepared, even though I don't know what there and then will bring, right? Because I can never know what there and then will bring. Whatever your field is, just getting really good at the fundamentals and building up those skills, and then just, asking interesting questions, being super playful. And I think if you do that, whether or not it's OIST you end up at or anywhere else, I mean, you're going to be on the path to doing good work.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great interview.
Yeah.